Welcome. This is Debra Ann Clement, and thank you for joining me for this episode of Shortcut to the Soul. If you enjoy the podcast, please subscribe, share it with your friends, your family, like-minded people, share it on social media. And by all means, if you enjoy it, drop a positive comment. It does help. I respond to them, by the way, but it also does help YouTube promote it and for other people to discover the podcast. Now, today's topic, I want to talk about how Jupiter in Taurus is going to influence money. In particular, how it is likely to influence your money, and also why it is very important during this particular Jupiter in Taurus cycle for you to pay attention, I'm going to say, to money, to financing, to the banking system. So basically, right, May 16th, Jupiter enters Taurus, and it stays there until May 25th of 2024. So that's the time frame that we're talking about. Now, Jupiter is the planet of generosity, its growth, its abundance, its expansion. And so, of course, the question or the hope is that while Jupiter is here, it is going to somehow bestow some type of financial blessing for you, as it moves through the sign. And the truth is, as long as you have reasonable expectations about your share of its bounty, the odds are good that you won't be disappointed. All right. And when I say you won't be disappointed, I mean in the sense of the amount of money and also how it comes to you. Because I will say this, first and foremost, while Jupiter is in Taurus, we are going to see the rich get richer. Now, that's not to say there won't be any benefit, all right, for you or the rest of us. And that's why I'll say, well, Jupiter is here, opportunities to increase your earnings or maybe beef up your savings account. Sure. But how it will come, all right, that's going to depend. So for some of you, it could just be, earned income, a salary increase. Maybe you're due for a raise, a union negotiates a contract, right? You might have changed your job and it'll be a new employer and a higher salary. Some may take on a second job or a third job. You might do some gig work. Maybe this is the time that you are going to start a business on the side. And on another hand, I'm just going to say second house possessions. Could be that you look and say, I've got this, this antique rocking chair that's just really gathering dust. I don't really even like it. You might decide to sell it and get a good dollar for it, or sell some jewelry. So how the income comes to you, right? That's going to depend. But there probably will be opportunities for it. How the influence is going to play out in your life, besides depending upon, right, your personal horoscope, it will depend upon your present circumstances. So how your wallet or your bank account is going to experience the cycle is going to depend to some extent on your present state of the current state of your financial health. It's also very important to remember that the second house isn't just about accumulating money, okay? It's also about spending it. It rules expenditures. So while Jupiter is in Taurus, I could say it's a safe bet that everyone may be spending more. Now, the truth is we're all going to be spending more because of inflation and rising interest rates, right? That's already the case, and that's been the case while Jupiter was in Aries. But Jupiter expansion, inflation, being in Taurus, which rules money and also tangible goods. So we can expect this trend to continue, unfortunately. So basically, everyone is going to be paying more, whether it's groceries, right? Things like that. Rents are also going up. Everyone will be paying more, but it'll be each person's personal finances that are really going to determine if it hurts and how much it hurts. Now, Jupiter, I do want to go back to the generosity, because Jupiter's generosity is legendary. So is its extravagance. So I will say, if you are a person who likes to seek out retail therapy when you're feeling down, not judging that, by the way, I've done it myself. Or if you're someone that, listen, you have a hard time living within your means, or you routinely kind of blow the budget, I am just going to say the cycle could seriously put you in the red. So you do want to be aware of maybe before you buy something, or if you buy it, really use it, not just buy it. And sometimes it goes on in the shelf or in the, in the cabinet, and it never gets used. And so one of the things too that I also want to mention about Jupiter in Taurus, Jupiter in Taurus can be very acquisitive. All right. And that's why if you are someone who enjoys collecting things, and especially if you do not enjoy parting with them, Jupiter in Taurus can promote a bit of hoarding. Now, I'm not saying that's going to put you on some reality TV show, like Hoarding, right? That was a TV show once. Never watched it, but do remember it was out there. But I will just say to you, it can inspire you to purchase, to collect, to acquire. Now, while Jupiter is here, I do want to sound the positive. Let's get to the positive, right? So some of you actually could find yourselves finally in a position to make a big ticket purchase. Finally, you can buy whatever that product is, or whatever that may have been considered a luxury item, or at least a luxury item for you. Maybe you will finally have enough money to make a down payment on a home. Now, just to be clear, a home, real property, that is a fourth house matter, right? Real property dwells in the fourth house. But that cash deposit that you're going to need to put down, that's second house. That's Taurus. On a similar note, those of you, if you have some extra money, well, some of you may have the opportunity to invest your money that will increase your net worth, right, through, investing in financial products. Of course, how much you gain will depend upon the size of your investment as well as the investment itself. Taurus by nature is a cautious sign. It is a risk-adverse sign. It likes the sure thing. So you may very well be drawn to guaranteed outcomes like, a certificate of deposit. And those interest rates, are actually have risen from, we're actually seeing interest, because unfortunately, we're also seeing it on credit cards and, the mortgages. But to go back to Taurus for a moment, because it's a cautious sign, and caution is going to be very important while Jupiter is in Taurus. Now, fortunately, Jupiter is the planetary ruler of higher knowledge. And so while it's in Taurus, can we expect it to infuse the bull with a dose of what will be much needed wisdom, let's say, to help navigate the financial instability that's ahead? Yes, we can. We have to channel it. We have to be consciously aware of it. And so on that note, I strongly encourage you to really channel that cautious nature of the bull. If it's not your nature normally, do your own research. Pay attention. Don't just read headlines, and don't blindly accept the word of, the financial giants, or quite frankly, any of the governing agencies about anything that is going to potentially impact your money. Because the fact of the matter is that there's quite a bit of financial volatility ahead. Here's the thing, Taurus rules financial institutions. Now, Jupiter is just crossing the bull's threshold, but Uranus, instability, volatility, has been in Taurus since 2015. So think of this, just a few months back, it was just back in March, right? The Silicon Valley Bank collapsed. A couple of days later, I think that was March 10th, because March 12th, the regulators, I believe, closed down Signature Bank. Okay, we could say, well, things happen. But then May 1st rolls around, and First Republic Bank, it's seized, its assets are sold to JP Morgan Chase. And so what happens in response? Stocks in regional banks, started to tumble. They've recovered a little bit, but there still are a number of your regional banks that are still a little bit on shaky ground. So while Jupiter is in Taurus, financial institutions, along with Uranus, well, it could expand that. It could expand it, and there could be additional bank failures, bank runs. People panic and they go and want to, take the money out. And so either way, I'm just going to say to you, I do feel we are still likely to see the smaller banks, or at least a couple more smaller banks, get gobbled up by the bigger ones. Okay, that'll just keep getting bigger. And when you think about, right, Jupiter in Taurus, and that is a little bit of the rich gets richer in terms of the corporate level. And so I do want to bring to your attention some notable Jupiter transits. So right out of the gate, right, Jupiter goes into Taurus on May 16th. On May 17th, it kicks off its visit. It kicks off its visit in Taurus with a square to Pluto, right? Pluto's in Aquarius. So I just want to sort of break this down and just say Jupiter's about expansion, right? And it's in Taurus, and we know it's money. A square is a provocative energy. There's going to be some kind of action. Very often it is challenging. And, who is it challenging? Pluto in Aquarius. Well, Pluto represents debt, okay? And it's in Aquarius, which, by the way, government, Congress. And so the aspect is exact on May 17th, all right? It's been applying, though, because as Jupiter moves towards it and becomes exact, the energy within that 1 degree period is it's building up. So the influence of the Jupiter-Pluto square, all right, even though people will be posting on it, about it on the day it happens, it's actually in effect from May 12th. And so this period could be very critical regarding the U.S. debt ceiling crisis. And of course, it will be exact on the 17th, and it does separate. So it is in effect a little bit after that as well. But when we look at the crisis, if it isn't expanded, Jupiter, right? We have to do something. Then, well, the government could default on its loans. Well, Pluto rules debt. Loans are debt. And that could conceivably trigger a massive Jupiter, economic, Taurus, collapse, Pluto. Now, of course, it's happened before. This isn't the first place, right? Time we've had this crisis going on. And so if it is resolved, well, then the collapse can be avoided. And the debt ceiling, or the debt, I should say, is going to increase, right? There we've got Jupiter. But here's the thing, let's be real. Whatever they do, assuming, right, they resolve it, it's going to be a short-term solution, because we've been here before. It's not going to cure the problem. If anything, it's like, I don't know, it's like putting a Band-Aid on gangrene is what it makes me think of. But it's just looking at the energy of what's going on. Now, what I really want to bring your attention to is next year. April 18th to the 26th of 2024. That is when Jupiter and Uranus will be in a conjunction, 22 degrees of Taurus, okay? So a Jupiter-Uranus conjunction, is usually considered unexpected good fortune. And so if Jupiter is coming along to make a conjunction to your natal Uranus, we usually see that as something positive. And if Uranus is coming along to conjunct your Jupiter, it's a much longer cycle of, we would say, unexpected good fortune. What it really is about, though, is some type of unexpected expansion. And so let me just say this, depending upon your personal horoscope, actually some of you could experience something really fortunate, and it could even be a big financial gain. But the thing is, with Uranus, it's always, it's unexpected, it's surprises. Sometimes they're good, sometimes we don't welcome them. So is there the possibility with Jupiter being, again, big, and Uranus being unexpected in Taurus, could it be an unexpected financial loss? It's possible it'll turn on your personal horoscope. And if it's anything of a major crisis, there may be there's something else going on in the chart, an eclipse, influence or something of that nature that's been in effect, or, another transit. But really what I'm looking at is the national level, the global level, because that's really where my concern is with the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction. Not that it won't have an effect on individuals, right? But that's where I feel it's more likely to be perhaps an extreme event. Because again, Taurus is money, Jupiter is expansion, and in astrology, Uranus is panic. So can something happen and we see a series of bank runs? People panic. They run and want to get their money out. Well, the banks don't have enough money. So do banks fail? Or perhaps even in the bigger banks, are there restrictions on withdrawals? In an extreme, really extreme case, could it speak to that Jupiter-Uranus conjunction in Taurus, some type of a sudden economic collapse? They're all possibilities, but there are other possibilities as well. Now, Uranus rules electric, Uranus rules technology, Uranus is also associated with weather. So could the grid go down? Could, electrical, not generators, but there are these big electrical, generators. Could they go down? Could the grid go down? Okay. Weather. Could there be tornadoes? Uranus is also associated with fire, right? Lightning, fire, things like that. So could there be some widespread fires at that time? And just something else I'm going to throw out, and this depends on what horoscope you use for the United States. But if you do use the Sibley chart, which is the one that I use, well, the 6th house cusp in that chart is 22 degrees of Taurus. Now, 6th house, of course, we're talking mundane astrology. And there is something to do with the workforce, but also in mundane astrology, the 6th house represents the nation's armed forces. So could there be some type of an event, a bomb or something, I'm just going to say, that propels the nation into war? Of course, we have to look at what else is going on at the time, and I'm not doing that here, but I just want to give you some idea of the type of things that can happen. So, of course, we could sit here and just worry and think, oh my God, because there are many possible events. And the truth is, we are likely to experience more than one. One thing is going to, trigger something else. And how it will affect you personally is going to really come down to your personal horoscope. And it could be something wonderful for you. Because just remember, an event happens. Sometimes, some people suffer and some people benefit. But if we look at where we are now, sometimes we can see clues of what is coming. And so we can prepare for it. Because one of the things, I'm just saying, as I sit, when I look and I analyze, that I do feel that Jupiter in Taurus, and especially its conjunction with Uranus, I look at that and I feel, well, you know what? Maybe that's going to be I feel it's the catalyst for, the greater push, if not, I don't know about the implementation at that time, of a central bank digital currency. Okay, so I want to bring your attention. Now, I'm going to take you back from 2024. I'm going to bring you right here back to 2023, July of 2023. So what happens that month? Well, transiting Jupiter will reach 22 degrees of Taurus. It is not conjunct Uranus, right? But it's reaching the 22 degree, the same degree of the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction in Taurus. Sometimes we can see clues. That month is also going to see the North Node. The lunar nodes shift on July 17th. The North Node is shifting into Aries, and I could think a little bit, war along that line, but really not going there. Venus stations retrograde, right? Money. So I would think, wow, July could be telling. Now, there's an event that's scheduled to happen in July. Whether or not it happens and to what extent, we have to see. And I'm saying whether or not or how, it's a little bit has to do with, I'm wondering about that Venus retrograde. I have to look at that more closely. But as of this moment, the Fed Now program is scheduled to go live in July. Okay. Now, if you're not familiar with it, basically the Fed Now program is an instant payment program, an instant payment system. If you've used PayPal, Venmo, Zelle, you've used an instant payment systems. I mean, most of us use it pretty often. And right. But now what's a little bit different is now, I always say the government is getting in on it, right? And they are saying, we're not going to replace these other systems and we're not doing it, to compete with them. Yeah, okay, whatever. But while much of it is going to be similar to existing instant payment systems, right? I mean, right now, a lot of times we use it, pay someone to walk the dog, right? And actually some localities will allow you to pay taxes, actually, with these accounts. The difference, what's making it really different is that the government, so it's extending its ability to make payments to consumers, right? Now, let's say a tax refund. The truth is they already will deposit refunds into your savings account or your checking account, right? They do that. This will extend it where they will say, oh, well, other benefits as well. And again, same thing, Social Security, right? They make those deposits into our account. So we're used to that. It's just going to be a different form. The biggest difference is they are going to, it's going to allow business to consumer, not just to give refunds, but to actually pay employees wages, take care of insurance claims. Now, if you're paying somebody a wage and you 1099 them, it's one thing, but if you're actually doing it and they're W-2 employees, it's a very different story, right? It's much more complex. So this is a very big difference. Is a major shift. And so the bottom line really is that if it works right now, the pilot program, I think there's over 100 banks, maybe a handful of credit unions involved. But ultimately, if it does work, everything will be paid through, right, this instant payment system. And if you do Google, whatever, browser you use, Google, Brave, whatever, and you look at the FedNow website, you will see what a huge investment, how much they're invested in this. And it's like a city. I think that's what they refer to it as a city. Now, it's interesting. So to me, it's interesting to look at it and say, okay, that's happening in July. When when Jupiter is hitting 22 degrees of Taurus. And so it does make me wonder, when Jupiter does hit Uranus, could this be the prelude, so to speak, to maybe try to implement, the CBDC here, in this country? And I don't know that that's going to happen. The other side of Uranus, remember, is yes, it's the technology. It's also rebellion. So that's why, could it be they try, or people just really rebel against it? But Taurus does rule currency. Okay, it rules currency. Now, we saw Uranus go into Taurus. And while Uranus has been in Taurus, we've seen, the rise, so to speak, of cryptocurrency to the point where it's become very commonplace. The average person knows Bitcoin. Very often in the beginning of any type of an investment, there's a small group, knows about it. And we're at the point now where, the average person was, investing in crypto, and certainly Bitcoin. I think even PayPal, all of a sudden, everywhere you look, buy Bitcoin. So, and Uranus also is kind of make a million, lose a million sometimes. And so we can certainly look at Uranus in Taurus and say, without a doubt, Uranus being technology, that it did change currency, to a technological currency, made it a little bit more commonplace. So we see that. But I feel what gets overlooked a little bit when it comes to the currency, is Pluto. Okay, is Pluto. And just, as an aside, because I just want to mention this about Bitcoin, there are certain state governments that will allow businesses actually to pay their taxes with Bitcoin. So, it is an Uranus connection to government. So it's in play. It's definitely in play. It's just it's not the whole system. So this brings me to Pluto. So Pluto is in the nation's second house. It's been there for quite some time. And Pluto transforms what it touches. And that's why I'll say, as Pluto comes to a new house in your horoscope, it comes there with a purpose. And the purpose is, by the time it leaves that house, those life areas, something's going to be radically different. And many of you have heard me give this example before, but it's a good one, so I'm going to repeat it. When Pluto came to my sixth house, I just started working. I was a secretary. And by the time it left, I was preparing to become an attorney. It's a big change. We talk about radical changes. So Pluto came into the United States, the USA's second house, some type of an intention of transforming wealth, finances, just something on some level, right? Financial transformation. So Pluto still has quite some time before it leaves the second house. But here's the point. It is changing signs. While it's in the second house of currency, it's moving into Aquarius, the sign of technology. So that's why I'll say Uranus can certainly bring change. And we saw it bring a new form of currency that is actually in play and being used. And of course, even the instant payment system, that's very much Uranus and Taurus, the technology. But to have massive change, I'm just going to say to you, widespread change, this massive transformation, especially if it's going to be on the national scale or global scale, I will tell you that takes Pluto. Okay, that takes Pluto. And so that's why as Pluto goes into Aquarius, because, it's here, it's dipping its toe in now, it'll come back next year, briefly retrograde in Capricorn the end of 2024 before it's in, Aquarius for good. Pluto is not something that happens overnight. It's a process. But looking at that Pluto going into Aquarius, does it have the potential like I say, to make this radical change of the currency from the dollar ultimately into digital? I'm just going to say it does. And that's a little bit of a side note. But the two things I do want to just close with is that as far as the digital currency goes, keep your eye on it. Some people are for it, some people aren't. I am going to be talking a lot more about Pluto in Aquarius as the year goes on. But for right now, I want to caution you all about viewing Jupiter in Taurus as some type of, I don't want to say financial savior. And it's not that it can't turn out that way for some of you, because some of you, Jupiter is going to bless you, very much so. But you need to keep your eyes on your money and your spending. Inflation isn't going away. The banking crisis isn't going away. Okay. And so that's why I do feel it's just an important time. If you're making some extra cash, you just might want to maybe save some of it for a rainy day. It's going to depend, of course, upon your circumstances. And I do feel it's very important. We're all going to pay attention in July. Well, I'm going to certainly be paying attention in July, and I'll probably be revisiting this topic after July passes or after the summer passes, and to see, because I do feel we're going to have clues in July by the end of July, for what is coming with that Jupiter-Uranus conjunction. So keep your eye on your money, keep the eye on the banking crisis. I know no one wants to listen to the news. And I will just say, even when you hear the news, do your own research. And because you'll be far better off, I feel, if you do. I do all my own research. I admit I don't believe anything. I don't trust anything anymore. And we can only do the best that we can. But I do feel we should do everything that we can, right? To, I'd say, protect ourselves. But they are uncertain times. And certainly financially, they're uncertain. And that volatility is going to continue. Jupiter is going to expand it. So on that note, I'm just going to thank you again. I hope some of this guidance will be helpful for you. And until next time, may Jupiter's blessings be your constant companion.
We hope you've enjoyed this presentation. For more information about studying astrology with Debra, or to schedule a consultation, please visit debraclementastrologer.com.